Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Blue Money. We like to get right into it around here, so let's do just that.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so for this deep dive, we are going to be looking at expert predictions about Bitcoin.
Yes, specifically like where they think it's going to be in 2025.
Ah, okay, so trying to see the future.
Well, more like analyzing the present to get an idea of, what the future might hold.
I see, so it's all about Bitcoin price predictions for 2025.
Yeah, and we've got some really interesting sources that I think you'll find fascinating.
Sweet, so what kind of things are we talking about here? Like, is Bitcoin going to double or something?
Well, some experts think it could even go way higher than that.
Whoa, really? Okay, so maybe like 100,000 or...
Actually, some are saying 200,000.
No way. $200,000 for one Bitcoin.
Yep, you heard that right. But before we jump into those predictions.
Yeah, let's rewind a bit first.
Exactly, because 2024 was a pretty crazy year for Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I remember watching the price just skyrocket.
It more than doubled in value, didn't it?
It did. He was insane. Everyone was talking about it.
Well, there were a lot of factors at play, like when Bitcoin broke through that $100,000 mark.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
Right. It was like a psychological barrier. And once it was broken, it kind of signaled to the market that Bitcoin was here to stay.
Yeah, I remember even my grandma was asking me about it then. But wasn't there also something about a spot Bitcoin ETF?
Yeah, that was another big one. The U.S. finally approved the first spot Bitcoin ETF.
I always forget what that means. Can you remind me?
Basically, it made it much easier for institutional investors to get into Bitcoin.
Ah, okay. So like the big players.
Exactly, like hedge funds and stuff. They were hesitant to invest before because there wasn't a regulated way to do it.
Oh, I see. So this ETF made it more accessible for them.
Yep, and when more investors come in, demand goes up.
And that usually pushes prices higher.
Exactly, which is what we saw happen.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there was also something about a halving event that happened last year.
Ah, yes, the halving. That's like a built-in mechanism in Bitcoin where every 4 years, the reward for mining Bitcoin gets cut in half.
So like the miners get less Bitcoin for doing the same work.
Right. It's a way to control the supply of Bitcoin and make sure it doesn't inflate too quickly.
Oh, so it's like they're making Bitcoin more scarce.
Exactly. And when something becomes more scarce, its value tends to go up.
It's like those limited edition sneakers everyone goes crazy for.
Exactly. 2024 was a big year for Bitcoin, but we can't forget about the downsides.
Yeah, you're talking about those crypto scandals, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. Those are some pretty dark moments for the industry.
Like that whole thing with Sam Bankman-Fried and Changpeng Zhao ending up in prison?
It definitely shook people's confidence.
Yeah, but it seems like the market has recovered since then.
It has, and now all eyes are on 2025 and what these experts think will happen to Bitcoin.
All right, so let's get to those predictions. You mentioned some are saying 200,000.
Yeah, there's a whole group we can call the $200,000 Club, and it includes some pretty big names.
Wow, give me the deets.
Okay, so we've got Standard Chartered, which is a huge multinational bank. Then there's Carol Alexander. She's a leading finance professor.
Oh, wow, impressive.
And a bunch of other analysts and experts are all pointing towards that $200,000 target.
Okay, I'm listening. What's making them so bullish, though?
Well, one major factor is this growing wave of institutional investment.
Yeah. So more of those big players getting involved.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they're starting to see Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class now.
So not just a speculative thing anymore.
Right, they're looking at the long-term potential.
Interesting. Anything else fueling their optimism?
Well, there's also a lot of talk about the U.S. potentially establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Whoa, wait, hold on. What does that even mean? Like a strategic Bitcoin reserve?
Yeah, it would be similar to how countries hold gold reserves.
So you're saying the U.S. government might actually buy and hold Bitcoin?
That's the idea. Some people think it could help protect the country against inflation and economic instability.
That would be a pretty big deal.
It would send a huge signal to the world that Bitcoin is a valuable asset.
Yeah, I can see that. But are all the experts predicting this 200,000 figure?
Not quite. Some are a bit more cautious, like bit mining, for example.
What are they saying?
They're predicting a range between 180,000 and 190,000.
Ah, so still pretty high, but not quite as bullish.
Yeah, they're acknowledging that Bitcoin's price could experience some corrections along the way.
Right, because it's not always going to be a straight line up.
Exactly. They're being a bit more realistic.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other experts with similar predictions?
Yeah, Maple Finance has a similar range. They're saying between 180,000 and 200,000.
Okay, so even with a little caution built in, those are still pretty impressive numbers.
For sure. But you want to know who's even more bullish than the 200,000 club?
Oh, yeah. Lay it on me.
Nexo, a crypto lending platform, is predicting Bitcoin to reach 250,000.
Whoa, seriously, 250,000.
Yep. They're going all in on this idea of Bitcoin as digital gold.
Digital gold. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's that all about?
Well, that's what we're going to dig into in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, man, you're killing me. All right, fine. Guess I'll have to wait.
Trust me, it's worth the wait.
All right, I believe you.
So we were talking about Nexo's prediction of Bitcoin hitting 250,000 in 2025, and this whole idea of it being like digital gold.
Yeah, that's what really caught my attention. I mean, can Bitcoin really be compared to gold?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And there are some interesting arguments to consider.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, Bitcoin has a limited supply, just like gold. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that. So that scarcity is supposed to make it more valuable over time.
Exactly. And then there's the fact that Bitcoin is decentralized,
Meaning what?
meaning no single entity controls it, like a government or a central bank.
So kind of like gold, it can't just be manipulated by some powerful institution.
Exactly. It has a level of autonomy that a lot of traditional assets lack.
I never thought of it like that. But isn't Bitcoin also known for being super volatile?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest criticisms. How can something with such wild price swings be considered a safe haven?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, the thinking is that as the market matures and more institutional investors get involved, those price swings will smooth out.
So basically, the more big players get involved, the less volatile it will become.
Exactly. That's the hope anyway.
But even if that happens, it still seems kind of risky, doesn't it?
Crypto is definitely not for the risk averse. But that's kind of the point, right? Higher risk can lead to higher rewards.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But let's move on to some of the other predictions. We were talking about coin shares before the break.
Right. They're taking a slightly more cautious approach.
How so?
Instead of giving a specific price target, they've given a wider range for Bitcoin in 2025.
And what is that range?
They're saying it could be anywhere between 80,000 and 150,000.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty big difference. So why the wide range? Are they unsure about something?
Well, they're a bit hesitant about the regulatory landscape.
Well, you mean like those pro-crypto policies we talked about?
Exactly. They're concerned that those policies might not turn out as favorable as some people are expecting.
I see. So they're factoring in some potential roadblocks.
Yeah, and they're also looking at the bigger economic picture.
Like what?
Well, things like global inflation, interest rate hikes, even geopolitical stuff. All of that can affect investor sentiment and ultimately the price of Bitcoin.
So they're taking a more holistic view.
Exactly. Trying to consider all the different factors that could come into play.
That makes sense. What about bit mining? I remember they had a prediction too.
Yeah, they're predicting a range between 180,000 and 190,000.
And what's their reasoning?
Well, they're coming at it from the perspective of miners.
The people who actually create Bitcoin.
Right. They believe that the increasing difficulty of mining Bitcoin, coupled with rising energy costs, will lead to a gradual price increase.
Wait, hold on. I'm a little lost there.
Yeah.
How does the difficulty of mining affect the price?
So as more miners join the network, it becomes harder and harder to mine new Bitcoin.
Oh, because they're all competing for the same limited reward?
Exactly. And this means that miners need more powerful computers and more energy to be successful.
And those costs eventually get passed on to the buyers.
Precisely. So the harder it is to mine Bitcoin, the more expensive it becomes.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there's Naple Finance. They had a similar prediction, right?
Yeah, they're also predicting a range between 180,000 and 200,000.
But for different reasons, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they're focused on the growth of decentralized finance, or DeFi.
DeFi. What's that?
Basically, it's a whole ecosystem of financial applications built on blockchain technology.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
So how does that tie into Bitcoin?
Well, Maple Finance believes that as DeFi becomes more popular, the demand for Bitcoin as collateral will surge.
Collateral.
Yeah, you can use Bitcoin as collateral for loans and other financial products within the DeFi space.
Oh, interesting. So they're betting on this synergy between Bitcoin and DeFi to drive up the price.
Exactly. But with all this focus on price predictions, it's easy to forget that Bitcoin is more than just an investment.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually supposed to be a currency, isn't it?
That's the original idea. But it hasn't really caught on as a payment method yet.
Why not?
Well, there are a few reasons. For one thing, the price is so volatile, it's hard to use it for everyday transactions.
Yeah, I can see that. If you buy a pizza with Bitcoin today, it might be worth twice as much tomorrow, or half as much.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of scalability. The Bitcoin network can only process a limited number of transactions per second.
So it's not really practical for large-scale adoption.
Not yet, anyway. But there are some interesting developments happening.
Like what?
Well, El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a pretty big deal.
It was. And while it hasn't been a complete success, it's definitely a step towards mainstream adoption.
So some countries are starting to embrace Bitcoin.
Yeah, and we're also seeing some businesses start to accept it as payment.
So it's slowly starting to gain traction.
It is, but for most people right now, Bitcoin is still primarily an investment.
Which brings us back to those price predictions.
Exactly. So in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore what these predictions mean for investors like you.
Awesome. I'm ready for it. Okay, so we've heard from all these experts and their Bitcoin predictions, but what does it all mean for the average investor?
Well, it's important to remember that predictions are just that, predictions.
Right, they're not guarantees.
Exactly. No one can predict the future with 100% accuracy.
So how should I approach these predictions then?
Yeah.
Should I be rushing to buy Bitcoin based on all this hype?
I wouldn't recommend that. It's always crucial to do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Yeah, don't just blindly follow the crowd.
Right. And remember, the golden rule: never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Especially in something as volatile as crypto.
Exactly. The crypto market can be unpredictable, so it's important to be prepared for the ups and downs.
So diversification is key.
Absolutely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different assets.
Even within crypto itself.
Yeah, explore different projects and see which ones align with your investment goals.
So don't just go all in on Bitcoin because everyone else is.
Right. Do your own due diligence and make informed decisions.
Okay, good advice.
Oh.
But what about the bigger picture here? We've been so focused on price predictions, but isn't Bitcoin about more than just making money?
You're absolutely right. If Bitcoin does reach these astronomical prices, it's a sign that something much bigger is happening.
Like what?
It suggests that cryptocurrencies are gaining mainstream acceptance.
So it's a potential challenge to the traditional financial system.
Exactly. It could change the way we think about money and finance altogether.
Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing to think about.
It is. It raises a lot of interesting questions about the future of finance.
Yeah, like what happens to central banks and governments if everyone starts using decentralized currencies?
Exactly. How
Yeah.
will global trade and financial systems adapt?
Those are some big questions.
They are, and it's an exciting time to be a part of this evolving landscape.
Especially for young investors like me.
Exactly. You have the opportunity to be a part of something truly transformative.
But with great opportunity comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. It's crucial to stay informed, think critically, and be aware of the ethical implications of your investment choices.
That's a great point. Well, I think we've officially reached the end of our deep dive into Bitcoin's future.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. From price predictions to the potential for a financial revolution.
It's been an insightful journey.
For sure. So for all you listeners out there, remember, knowledge is power. The more you learn about crypto, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this exciting new world. Thanks for joining us on the Blue Money Channel. And until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.